This is Reporter Room with Jessica Della Davies.
Hello, guys. Come on in. Come on in. I have breaking news in the Emmanuel Haro case. Breaking news in the Emmanuel Haro case. We are going to be talking about the judge that let baby Emmanuel go. That let Jake Haro go. Excuse me. This is the judge. I told you guys I was going to make it my mission to find out what happened. So this is the judge who decided to let Jake off the hook. So this is who the DA is saying is responsible for what happened to baby Emmanuel. I'm just asking that please don't send any negativity to anyone, anytime, anywhere. My name is Jessica Della Davies. I'm an investigative journalist. My job is to investigate crimes, crime scenes, and potential suspects, and share with you how to do the same thing. If you haven't subscribed, it's free. Please consider subscribing. Like, share, leave a comment, and know that everything I'm sharing with you is my opinion. And please don't send any negativity to anyone. This video is for adults only. Viewer discretion is advised. So baby Emmanuel Haro, the DA was very clear when he gave his press conference. He blamed, this was DA Mike Hestron asserted on Wednesday that he felt like it was the judge's decision to grant Jake probation in the 2018 case of Carolina Rose, who now goes by the name of Promise. But he feels like it is that Emmanuel would be alive today if it wasn't for the judge's decision. The judge in that case of 2018, Jake Haro was allowed to plead guilty to willful child cruelty in a case involving his 10-week-old daughter, Carolina Haro. She suffered a fractured skull, damaged spine, multiple broken bones. She is blind. She has 3% brain function. She's on a trach. So at the court hearing on June the 8th, Superior Court Judge Dwight D. Moore suspended Jake Haro's 6-year prison sentence and instead granted Jake Haro probation. He said, quote, "I'm giving you a chance. Don't mess it up. Good luck." So it appears from his comments at the time that Judge Moore thought that the threat of Jake doing anything further, that just the threat of prison alone would be enough to deter Jake Haro from doing anything wrong in the future. Of course, we know now that that is just not the case. He talked to the Long Beach Post. He said, quote, we have hung a very large hammer over the defendant's head. This is according to a transcript that was obtained by the Long Beach Post, who broke the story. The judge's decision was, this is according to DA Hestron, quote, absolutely outrageous. He said this at the Wednesday press conference. He said Mr. Harrow should have been in prison, and if that judge had done his job, he would have been, and Emmanuel would be alive today. At the 2023 hearing, Deputy DA Sam Tailoa took issue with the lenient sentence. So this is back in 2023. And he spoke out and he said, quote, Your Honor, I would like to ask for the record to reflect that the people are objecting to this. So this is Deputy DA Sam Tola. He said, quote, this is based on the severity of the injuries as we discussed to the victim. Now, on Wednesday, Judge Moore spoke to the Long Beach Post and said that ethical rules would prevent him from explaining why he granted probation to Jake Haro. And they probably do. But he, made a massive mistake. And the deputy DA must be, just beside himself that he, put it on the record that he objected to this sweetheart deal that Vincent Hughes helped broker with Judge Moore. Judge Moore continued, he said, this is to the Long Beach Post, he said, I'm absolutely precluded from commenting publicly about the case. He acknowledged the controversy. He said it caught him by surprise. He said, in 18 years, this is the first time I've been taken to task in this manner about a decision I've made. Well, if he's letting all of these guys off the hook, maybe this is, maybe this should have happened sooner. So yes, I also want to talk about Rebecca Haro, as I found out some information about her as well. Let me just put her picture up. So Rebecca Haro was married before. She was married for 11 years prior to her marriage to Jake Haro. And this man has asked to remain anonymous. So, I'm going to leave it with him being anonymous. But let me just share this with you. Take this down. Oh, let me pull this. All right. So she was married for 11 years. She had 2 daughters with her first husband, and both daughters, my understanding is they're both adults. They're both over 18. And you will recall that Rebecca is 41 years old. According to the U.S. Sun, her ex-husband, so that's who chose to remain anonymous, so we'll leave him there, had 2 grown daughters together with Rebecca. He also mentioned that he and Rebecca had been separated for years and that he was unaware of her remarriage to Jake. So he didn't know she was remarried, and she did not know that they had baby Emmanuel together until news of the child's disappearance broke. And how shocked would he have been to turn on the TV and see that, his wife was suddenly found, on camera, talking about the fact that her baby had been snatched by some guy who said hola. I do want to talk about a post that SF Investigates made on the case. I thought this was interesting. Now, and the reason I wanted to share it, let me just share, is because I do have a different opinion. Now, just because I have a different opinion from SF Investigates doesn't mean that I'm right and he's wrong. It doesn't mean he's right and I'm wrong. But I just wanted to kind of juxtapose what we learned and how we processed the same information differently. I just thought it was interesting. So he said he believes that Emmanuel passed away at the hands of Rebecca Haro. So he believes that Rebecca Haro was the perpetrator and not Jake. He said, although Jake is equally responsible, the reason I believe she directly, and I'm just going to paraphrase here, did away with Emmanuel and Jake's presence is based on several observations. So I'm going to share his observations, and then I'm going to, at the same time, juxtapose those with mine, because I see the same information that he's looking at, but I processed it in a little bit of a different way. I just thought it was interesting that we had such a different take on it. This doesn't mean I'm right and he's wrong. It doesn't mean he's right and I'm wrong. It just means we processed it differently. But he said both were initially charged with first-degree murder with malice, which can be filed as either first or second degree. Rebecca's charge was immediately upgraded to first degree, while Jake's was undetermined until he was assigned a lawyer on Tuesday. I believe they, and he's talking about law enforcement here, were trying to give him a false sense of hope for the time they had access to him before being represented on Tuesday. He has a history of flipping on others. He did this to his ex in the 2018 case. He only cares about himself. And in court, Rebecca's look toward him was very much a please tell me you're sticking to the story kind of glance. And of course, we know that Jake didn't stick to the story because he took law enforcement on this wild goose chase, right? This is me just telling you what I think. I mean, he clearly wasn't sticking to the story. He flipped just like I thought he was going to. So SF Investigates continues. He said Jake was talking and he was not represented by a lawyer at this time. He had legal representation before his arrest. So that he's talking about Vincent Hughes here. But after being taken into custody, we saw the money arrive at the house and appear totally out of the loop. The attorney arrive at the house, and appear totally out of the loop. And we did see Vincent Haro arriving at the crime scene. And he said that lawyer was never seen again. He wasn't. And my understanding is that Vincent Haro asked to be removed from the case. So SF investigates, continues. He said either he quit or Jake told him his services were no longer needed. Jake seems to think he's the smartest guy in the room. He likely believes that just as he walked away from the 2018 case with only 1 day in jail, he can game the system again. And I do believe that Jake believes that. I agree with all of that. So he continues on. He says there's a couple of indicators that he did not have a lawyer after his arrest. First, if he was Mirandized and then invoked his right to counsel, either by saying he had an attorney or asking for one, then anything he said afterward would be inadmissible in court unless he signed a waiver of his Fifth and Sixth Amendment rights, which essentially would amount to firing his attorney. Jake was not represented by a lawyer during the search in the field off of 60 Highway. And that's true. When we saw him in that field, we did not see a lawyer present. He said if he had been, the attorney would have been physically present with him for that to occur. Detectives cannot talk to him without an attorney present. The second clue comes from Jake and Rebecca's booking records. On the record, they were booked, but their booking numbers were about 60 apart. So he's talking about 60 people apart. Given their high-profile status, they should have been processed quickly and not left there sitting in inmate reception. Both show arrest times of 7:28 a.m., but their booking times tell a different story. Rebecca was booked at 12:32 p.m., which makes sense. She's brought in, held in an interview room for a bit, likely invoked her rights, and then gets taken to jail and booked. But Jake isn't booked until 5:53 p.m., so more than 10 hours after his arrest. That gap suggests he was being interrogated for hours and was actively talking a lot. And I agree with all of that part of it. I agree that Jake talked, and we saw him taking law enforcement on this wild goose chase on Sunday, where they went out there with search dogs. So he was talking a lot, but was he telling the truth or was he throwing Rebecca under the bus? And this is where SF Investigates and I have a little bit of a different opinion, but I want to share his because I do think it's interesting. And just because we have different opinions, this is a critical thinkers channel. And, we like to have all of the information here, and having differing opinions is a good thing. He says, we know that his pre-arrest attorney wasn't with him because we saw him show up at the house. We also know that neither Jake or Rebecca had court-appointed attorneys until their hearing on Tuesday. And that's correct. Jake got a public defender, and as of Tuesday, the hearing had to be postponed to September 4th because Rebecca still didn't have a public defender. They likely have to get one from a different jurisdiction so as not to have a conflict of interest because Jake and Rebecca will probably be tried separately. He continues, the arraignment was even delayed until next week because lawyers had not been assigned. That's proof enough that Jake had no representation during the time he was giving statement. So he's talking about when that 10 hours of delay of being booked into the jail. He said that he was then everything he told detectives would be inadmissible and the whole case would likely collapse because of fruit of the poisonous tree doctrine. He said he believes that Emmanuel was the victim of severe CA by both parents since birth. I'm watching my words here. He said, I think that there was a final incident, possibly an argument about Emmanuel, where Jake did hit Rebecca, giving her the black eye. In response, she may have taken it out on Emmanuel in front of Jake as a form of revenge. So this is where I differ from him. So I think that the common denominator between baby Emmanuel and Carolina Rose, whose name is now Promise, she's now 7 years old. That's the 2018 case. I believe that the common denominator is Jake Harrow. So that's where I have a different take on it. I think that this would have been something that law enforcement would have thrown out to Jake as some red meat to get him to try to say where the baby was, because I do think that they want to find baby Emmanuel. But I don't think that Rebecca would have done this in revenge as revenge. And the reason I don't think that is because she had 2 children with her prior husband, and he didn't mention any history of her doing anything to her 2 grown daughters. So, and she also had another 2-year-old with Jake, and she wasn't present. She wasn't the wife during What happened in 2018? That was Vanessa. That was wife number 2 or number 1. I don't know. Jake's been married 3 times. But he said he believes both are fully responsible. I believe that too. And I believe that Rebecca is responsible because she perpetrated a hoax. But he thinks that the final blow came from Rebecca. I'm not as convinced of that. So I have a different opinion. Please watch your words in the comment section, but let me know what your opinion is on this. If maybe you have a completely different opinion from me and from SF Investigates. So he said Jake is doing everything he can to sell her out. I agree with that. I think he is doing everything he can. I think that's why he was held. That's why he was talking. He was trying to cut himself a deal. He thinks he's the smartest guy in the room. I agree with that. He said until his court-appointed attorney came in on Tuesday, I'm certain Jake was trying to spin the story to detectives, portraying himself as the victim. And we saw this, right? We saw this in Jake's statement when he went public, making himself out to be the victim. I'll pull that up for you. Let me pull that up really quick. I did want to show you my sourcing. This is my sourcing on the judge. Just wanted to show you that. Okay, so he said, let me pull up. Jake Haro speaks from prison, because we talked about this yesterday. But let me pull that up. Because he was definitely trying to make himself out to be the victim. So we'll go through that next. But I want to finish with this. He said that Jake is doing everything he can to sell her. He's talking about Rebecca here, out until his court-appointed attorney came in on Tuesday. I'm certain Jake was trying to spin the story to detectives, portraying himself as the victim. And I'm sure the detectives played along to keep him talking. I agree with that. Jake still believes that he has everyone fooled and that he'll game the court again. But this time, they're both going down for what happened to Emmanuel. I'm paraphrasing here. Both, most likely, Rebecca for the first degree and Jake for second degree. And see, I think it's going to be the other way around. I think they're going to be able to make a case for some type of DV and maybe even coercive control. And either they're both going down for first degree, or if anyone's going down for second, I think it will be Rebecca. Just because I don't think Jake has any credibility at this point. He said, I could be wrong, but you can't convince me Jake had a lawyer before Tuesday. I agree with that too. And you definitely can't convince me that he had legal representation with him when he went out in that field. There's a reason they haven't clarified whether Jake's charge will be first or second degree. They're both monsters. I agree with that too. So we agree on a lot of things. We don't agree on everything. So let's go through this together, because I do think it was interesting. And if you guys are just joining me, I did find the judge in this case, in the case of the 2018 case. I told you guys I was going to be like a dog with a bone last night. So this is Jake Haro speaking out from jail. So I just want to kind of piggyback this off of what SF Investigates said. So he looked at the same information that I looked at, had a little bit of a different conclusion and take on it. I think Jake Haro shot himself in the foot when he led authorities on that wild goose chase. And I think that it's possible that Rebecca Haro will be able to make a case for some type of DV. I mean, this doesn't mean she'll get off for anything. It just means that, and nor should she, but it just means that I do think there might be some mitigating circumstances here. So this is Jake Haro speaking out from jail. He said, and I just want to juxtapose this on what SF Investigates said, because I thought that was a really interesting, well thought out post. And I thought he got a lot of things right. And he may have gotten all of it right. I could be wrong on this. I just had a little bit of different take on a couple of things. But he said, I love you, buddy. What they're saying in the exclusive. So he was asked what he would say to baby Emmanuel today. And Jake said, replied, I love you, buddy. This guy really does think he can game the system. He spoke at length about his 2023 child cruelty conviction involving his 10-week-old daughter, Carolina, who is now named Promise. She's now 7 years old. He said he was railroaded into a plea after, of course, he is the victim in this. You guys know from narcissistic people narcissistic perpetrators, that they are always, always the victim. So we'll talk about that in just a second, but let's go through this really quickly just to make sure we're all on the same page. So he, said he was railroaded. Of course, he got this sweetheart deal. I still haven't found out whether this judge, Judge Dwight Moore, has a relationship with Vincent Hughes, who was the attorney. He's no longer the attorney for Jake Haro. I want to know if there was a sweetheart deal in place because of a relationship between these two. So I'm going to continue to dig. But according to DA Mike Hestron, he said that the 2018 incident, he's calling it incident here, involved Jake's daughter with another woman, that would be Vanessa, and that the baby suffered several injuries, including a partial bone fracture of the skull, brain hemorrhage, when Jake claimed he accidentally dropped her during bath time, but prosecutors said the injuries were likely the result of long-term CA. I'm watching my words here. He said he believed it was a prison case and that Jake should have gone to prison. He said Jake should have gone to prison. According to court documents obtained by people, one of the, and my sourcing on this is Fox 11, one of the doctors who examined baby Carolina, she's now named Promise, said that her condition, quote, could have been fatal if medical attention was not sought. So and remember, Vanessa went to the hospital alone. Jake wasn't there. Just like Rebecca showed up alone for my baby got snatched and the perpetrator gave me this black eye. I believe the perpetrator gave Rebecca the black eye. I just believe the perpetrator was Jake Haro. So in 2023, Jake got a sweetheart deal with prosecutors. He entered a guilty plea to a single count of willful child neglect. Instead of sending Jake to prison, the judge chose to give him basically probation for 48 months, and he gave him 80 days in jail, where he served 1 day, and the other 179 days, he was let out on work release. And DA Hestron said that the prosecutor, and I shared with you the quote on that, objected to this decision and affirmed that this is a prison case. However, the judge decided that Mr. Haro deserved an extra break. And I want to know, this is what I still am digging to find out, why did this judge decide that Jake Haro deserved an extra break? And what kind of relationship did this judge have with Jake Haro's attorney? The DA continued. He said that the decision was absolutely outrageous. Mr. Haro should have been in prison at the time that this crime happened, and that the judge had done his job. If he had done his job as he should have, Emmanuel would be alive today. So if you're just joining me, I did show the picture of the judge. Please don't send any negativity toward anybody. We don't do that. But I just wanted to show you how Jake is trying to spin this, that of course, he's the victim in all of this. So let's talk about this narcissistic victim syndrome. We see this a lot in perpetrators like Jake Haro. He's probably sociopathic. I don't think anybody that had a conscience could do this to innocent children. But it's a non-medical term. Hold on one second. I think I just popped up the wrong one. Hold on. My bad. Okay. I pulled up the wrong one. Okay. So let's go through this quickly together. I'm not going to stay on too long, but I did want to go through. Told you guys I was going to be digging about this judge. Okay, so let's talk about perpetrators like Jake Haro. So the perpetrator, and these are narcissistic offenders, and you can see, Jake Haro is, has DARVO'd this. He's turned this around to, make himself the victim. They deny, they defend their bad behavior at the expense of the ones who have been hurt. And I think a lot of people are drawn to true crime cases because of things that have happened to themselves. And maybe this has something has happened to you, or maybe you have, suffered at the hands of somebody like Jake Haro, or maybe you've been involved with somebody who is narcissistic. So this is a DARVO. This is an acronym, and it's deny that they did anything wrong, attack you and your character. You're too sensitive. It's your fault. And then they turn the whole situation around. So all of a sudden they are the victim and you have hurt them. I can't believe you would do this to me. This is known as DARVO. So let's pull that up. Okay. So this is how they use DARVO to escape accountability. And this is what Jake Haro is basically doing. The system railroaded me. So it's deny, attack, reverse, victim, and offender. And it's a tactical maneuver that manipulators use. And they use it not just on individuals, but on, entire groups. And this is why I believe he gave that talk to the media when his lawyer told him not to. He believes he's smarter than everybody else in the room and that he's not going to be held accountable because he was not held accountable by the first judge. So meanwhile, the recipient becomes the scapegoat and is the target of vilification. And maybe you've had this happen to you where you've come forward with something that's, terrible that's happened, and bystanders regrettably accept the manipulator's lies as truth. And suddenly you find yourself being the victim. I'm sorry, being the perpetrator when you didn't do anything wrong. So the first step in DARVO, which I believe this is what Jake is trying to perpetrate on all of us, is denied. And this process begins with adamant refusal to accept any responsibility or acknowledge having any role or any involvement in the harmful behavior or actions. And we see this with him saying that he was, quote, railroaded by the system, right? The truthful account of the events is stridently rejected and minimized. Denial seeks to deflect the blame. Consequently, it also implies that, in fact, the perpetrator who is being subject to injustice is being wrongly accused of something they did not do. Denial distorts or disregards the reality of the situation. So that's step one. We've already seen Jake already deploy this. Step two is to attack. So this is the second stage. It involves character assassination with the aim of redirecting blame onto the person who confronted the perpetrator, scapegoating the innocent party, and burdening them with accountability for the crimes of the aggressor. So by shifting blame away from themselves, manipulators can preserve their self-image. They can preserve their reputation and or their position of power. And as I shared with you in Jake's statements that he made, I believe that, let me pull that up. I believe that he was absolutely deflecting. He was blaming the system. The system railroaded him. And, absolutely, in my opinion, was going to throw Rebecca under the bus. So now let's talk about, and I believe that the next thing we'll see is a smear campaign against Rebecca, which, she does just deserve that. She's not an innocent party, but just like he blamed Vanessa, he will absolutely throw everything onto Rebecca. So he will reverse the victim offender. Once the character assassination has formed a critical mass of bystanders who are successfully deceived by the manipulator's false claim, the victim survivor is subjected to the painful process of scapegoating. And maybe this is something you have experienced in your own life. And that's how we get to the final stages of DARVO, where the victim is cast as the villain while the perpetrator is exonerated, and the reversal of victim and offender. This relies on pre-existing biases, stereotypes, and prejudices, which are often used to animate bystanders in persecuting and punishing the victim survivor. So this is the DARVO tactic: deny, attack, reverse, victim, and offender. So I hope that makes a little bit more sense. And we have seen that with Jake Haro, in my opinion, in the press interview that he gave where he spoke out. He can't put this onto Emmanuel, obviously. So he's, in my opinion, he's going to be forced to go after Rebecca. And she has not shown herself to be, a very ethical person either, because she's obviously stood by and let this happen. The DA told us that they didn't think this happened all at once, that they think that what happened to baby Emmanuel was repeated and ongoing, that he was the victim of long-term CA. And I'm watching my words here. He said that Jake Haro and Rebecca Haro, this is what Jake said. He said it was that they had harmed a 7-month-old Emmanuel. I don't know if he was even 7 months. He might have been 8 months. He said it's not true at all. This is what he told the Orange County Register. The day before, this is from jail. So during a 45-minute interview via video at the jail, Jake was asked about his trip to Moreno Valley Badlands on Sunday, August the 24th, where, in my opinion, he sent investigators on a goose chase looking for baby Emmanuel. He said, I don't want to talk about it. I want to talk about it, but I can't. He told the Register, I was told don't do press. But again, he thinks he's the smartest person in the room, which is why he's doing press anyway. When he did open up about his 2023 child cruelty convictions for what he did to Carolina, who is now named Promise, and back in 2018, he said that authorities led authorities to assume that he did away with baby Emmanuel. He said, I pled guilty because I didn't have any money to go to trial, but he had money for Vincent Hughes. Vincent Hughes isn't cheap. So he could have gone to trial. Would you plead guilty to something you absolutely didn't do? The judge said nobody would believe my side of the story. Well, I buy that because I think he's a liar, but that's just my opinion. Somehow they magically, I love that he said this. This is just like so typical of DARVO, that somehow so the judicial system is the perpetrator here, and Jake Haro is the victim. He said, somehow they magically convinced me to take this plea deal. I was sick of court. The judge knows I didn't do it. They just railroaded me. I was the fall guy. But again, the only common denominator between what happened to Carolina back in 2018, she's now named Promise, and baby Emmanuel, because they had different mothers, is Jake Haro, which is why I believe that Jake Haro is the one that did this. In 2018, Vanessa went to the ER with this child alone. He wasn't there. He didn't go. Now he claimed, so he couldn't say he didn't do anything. He claimed that he had been washing the infant, this is baby Carolina, who's now named Promise, in the sink and accidentally dropped her. And the doctor who examined the baby said her injuries could not be explained by falling such a short distance in the sink. So they didn't buy it then. But he's trying to make sure that Rebecca doesn't say anything. I think he absolutely has already thrown her under the bus. That's why he wasn't booked into jail. He was singing like a canary, agreeing to, throw Rebecca under the bus. I just don't know if law enforcement is going to be willing to throw her under the bus and give him a free pass on this. I don't think so. He spoke up in support of Rebecca, whom he married 3 years ago. He said Rebecca is innocent. I don't think you can call her innocent. She tried to perpetrate a hoax. She claimed somebody that said "Hola" hit her in the eye, and she saw white and she dropped to the ground. So I don't think you can really call that innocent. He said the media is killing her. She's a beautiful woman. She loves her children. And she has another child with Jake Haro, and she has 2 children from her first marriage of 11 years. And that man has asked to remain anonymous, and we will leave it that way. There's no reason to bring him into it. Speaking about the criticism that has been leveled at the couple on social media, he told the Register, God is with us. It's always a huge red flag when you hear a perpetrator invoking God. The allegations are horrendous, so of course people are going to be riled up. and then asked what he would say to baby Emmanuel. He said, "I love you, buddy." So just so typical. So typical. So this is, a pretty common tactic that we see with narcissistic people. And now most people who are narcissistic are not sociopathic. And I'm not diagnosing Jake. Obviously, I'm not a mental health professional, but I do believe that only as somebody with sociopathic tendencies could do this, and blame Vanessa. And the next thing is going to be blame Rebecca. And Rebecca deserves whatever she gets. But they will use different tactics. They will use triangulation. This will try to pull a third person into the conflict to reinforce their own opinion or position. They will try to gaslight you, trying to get you to doubt your own perspective and reality, often by twisting facts or insisting things that you remember didn't actually happen. And maybe this happened to you. Hoovering, this tactic involves attempting to reconnect or pull you back into a toxic relationship. This is after you've tried to get out, and they will use, different tactics to try to suck you back in. The silent treatment. This behavior becomes manipulative when someone purposely ignores you to control you or to make you feel isolated. This is another common tactic that you will see. Scapegoating. Parents use narcissistic manipulation to place all of the blame on one child they designate as a scapegoat. Passive aggressive, indirect blame shifting, sabotage, and sarcasm then all point to covert narcissistic manipulation. So this is, really common. And let me pull this up really quick. I'm not going to stay on too long. I just wanted to tell you I did find the judge. But I also want to see if I have pictures. Let me see. This one looks like it does. Okay. So if you look at this picture of Jake, with Emmanuel, you can see just how manipulative he is. He's sitting next to her. He's talking about wanting to, if you find baby, if you took baby Emmanuel, please make sure he has his diaper on. Like this is really how he talks about it. Very, very manipulative, in my opinion. Rebecca Harrow is also very manipulative, in my opinion. I mean, she sat there and said that a man said "hola" and hit her in the eye, which is clearly an older black eye. You guys all called it correctly. So I would just want to quickly go through the timeline. Let me see if I can pull this up. Of what has gone on here. Just so we're all on the same page on this. So Jake and Rebecca, now Jake is only 32 and Rebecca is 41, which is why this is his third marriage. Rebecca's his third marriage. And I believe that, Rebecca is probably a little bit of a doormat, maybe a lot of a doormat, but this is what we know so far. She reported that she was attacked outside a retail store. That was the Big Five in Yucaipa. This is according to the San Bernardino Sheriff's Department. She told officials that while she stood outside her vehicle changing Emmanuel's diaper, she was physically assaulted by an unknown male and rendered unconscious. So somebody said "hola," and when she woke up, her baby was snatched. So this is what law enforcement has done so far. They had scent tracking dogs were deployed. Now they were in the house and they did find a lot of blood on the carpet. Officials have said this is an active investigation. They were seeking our help in finding Emmanuel. I think we were all hoping that he would be found alive. But on August the 15th, authorities released another statement saying they were continuing their search for 7-month-old baby boy who was reportedly kidnapped last night in Yucaipa. So this is not, obviously, this is what they said on the 15th. They were still working to locate, but I think they were having a lot of suspicions, just like you guys all were on this. They conducted extensive searches into Yucaipa and Cabazon looking for baby Emmanuel. This is what they said in the press release on the 18th. On the 19th, they said they were looking for reported sightings of Emmanuel in Kern County, And that same day, this is when we, first heard from Vincent Hughes, provided a statement to ABC News saying both parents seek answers about their missing child. Now, of course, he is no longer on the case. He is no longer representing Jake Haro, and it is unclear if he has any relationship with this judge. But I'm just wondering how this judge decided to give Jake Haro this sweetheart deal. Are there other perpetrators out there that this judge gave such a sweetheart deal to? So, on the 22nd, you guys, we all watched together as Jake and Rebecca were arrested at their home in Cabazon. Investigators determined that a kidnapping did not occur, and they don't believe that Emmanuel is alive, and they are searching to recover his remains. We saw the booking mugshots of Jake and Rebecca here, and I did enhance those photos for you to show you the bruising. And you can see without her foundation on that Rebecca does have bruising under both eyes and around her mouth here. I do think these are older bruises, even prior to the day that, she supposedly the baby was supposedly kidnapped. And then we watched together on August the 24th as officials conducted another search for Emmanuel along the westbound shoulder of the 60 freeway in the Moreno Valley with Jake Haro and cadaver dogs with detectives. I believe that Jake Haro did, as SF Investigate said, was singing like a canary, but he wasn't singing like a canary to actually help, in my opinion. He was throwing Rebecca under the bus and backing over her, in my opinion. And then we saw them on the 26th making this court appearance. And I think their body language kind of says it all. Rebecca, you can still see the bruising under the left eye. You can't see the right eye in this photo, or the right side of her mouth. But you can see, he's leaned back, looking confident. This guy does think he's the smartest guy in the room. And you can see she's almost sitting, making herself very, very small. In my opinion, she probably does feel some shame, but she's not enough to backtrack off of her story. And I don't know, she's all in on thinking that on saying that this child has been kidnapped. On the 27th, we watched the press conference with the Riverside County DA. They revealed that they believed that this had happened, that what happened to baby Emmanuel was not instantaneous, that this had happened over a period of time, which is something that you guys thought too. Numerous people have shared in the chat that they believe that this happened over a period of time. And I shared with you guys that I didn't think that this child had met his milestones. Let me pull this down. That if he really was 7 months old or 8 months old, some of you guys have pointed out that he was actually 8 months old, not 7 months old when he disappeared. So I believe that when Rebecca last saw him, he was probably 7 months old. But we don't have any pictures of him sitting up or eating his first solid food or teething. We don't have any photos of him doing the pincer grasp, which is the hand finger skills of the pointer finger and the thumb, where he would be picking up Cheerios. We don't have any pictures of him crawling or start trying to pull himself up or stand up. So that tells me that, a lot. It tells me a lot about when he probably did pass away. Let me check in with chat. So thank you guys so much for joining me. If you're watching, please come on up and say hello. I am curious to get your input on this. Do you think that Jake Haro, who do you think is the one that actually perpetrated this crime? Please watch your words. But if you think it was Rebecca Haro, put a 1 in the chat. If you think she's the one that ultimately did away with this child. If you think it was Jake Haro, put a 2 in the chat. If you're not sure, that's okay. But I'm just curious where you guys are at on this. And I just do want to say thank you so much to our head mod and Jazz. Thank you so much. I did do this kind of at the last minute. As soon as I saw the judge's name, I decided I just wanted to pop on really quick. So thank you to our mods for hopping on here with me. I had not pre-planned this. So let's see where you guys are at on that. Let me grab a sip of water. Becky says, I believe Emmanuel could be in the Badlands landfill, which is 10 miles from Badlands, where law enforcement and Mr. Haro, or she calls him Mr. Haro, were on Sunday. All right, let me see if I can pull that up. See if I can grab a picture of that. I don't know if there's going to be a lot of pictures of that on the web or not. But that does make a lot of sense that that's where he would be. I mean, that's what we saw. Let me share this. All right, so let me take this down and put this up instead. So this is just a quick picture of what it looks like. We saw this in the Quentin Simon case where we, saw where Leilani, that was easier though for law enforcement to find Quentin Simon. It was easier, and this is another picture of it. It was easier because in that case, they, when he was reported missing versus when he was actually missing was just one day. Whereas in this case, I do think it's a little bit more complicated because we don't know how many days were passed. But Becky, I think you're right. I think that's I don't know if you're right or not, but I think it's a really good theory. And Jazz is letting you know, we do have a Facebook group. Here's the link where we do talk about true crime. Holly said, hopefully the landfill organizes. That has helped detectives before in other cases. Jennifer said, I may be incorrect, but I feel like I heard something about poor Emmanuel being missing too long for trash workers to be able to help. And just as she heard the same thing, Deb's heard the same thing. Because, and I'll just explain a little bit about that. I'm going to be very careful of my words. Because of how soft babies' bones are, it can make it almost impossible for authorities to find. And we were really worried about this in the Quentin Simon case too, that they wouldn't be able to find Quentin because of how soft he was. Now he was obviously he wasn't 7 months, he was a couple of years old, but and Jazz hopes he gets a long sentence. Hey Chris, and good to see you. Jennifer says, if Jake had already been held accountable for what he had done to children, he wouldn't have been free to hurt anyone else. So true. So true. Hey, Dee. Thanks for joining me today on this pop-up live stream. Hi, Texas Life, Julie. Tslag, I hope I'm saying your name right. Tslaggy, Emmanuel didn't have a birth certificate is what I heard, and I think that's why there's confusion on his age. Deb said, so heartbreaking. I have 50,000 photos of my child. All right, so here's your thing. It sounds so 2 is Jake is the perpetrator, and 1 is Rebecca is the perpetrator. So I'm seeing a lot of 2s. Thank you for modding today, Lori. 2s. Thank you for modding today, Dabs. 2. All right, so I'm not seeing a lot of 1s here. Eastern Girls says, Marie says she's not sure. May thinks it's a 2. Yeah, it does seem like that. I do think there was possibly some coercive control here too. I noticed in the images too, in the initial press conference, a lot of the time Jake was the one holding their 2-year-old too. So I just wonder if there was some coercive control. This doesn't, I mean, Rebecca had every opportunity to, and she's still in jail. So I don't know what she's going to do, but to me, she's had multiple opportunities to walk back this hoax, and instead she's doubled down and insisting that someone has kidnapped baby Emmanuel. Jits Jelly says, I'm thinking that police have a lot more information than we know. Yeah, we'll find out more as on September 4th, right? Dab said, I hope they do a search. Bean Baby said, bees, whoever even provided any pictures, I'm pretty sure they had pictures and videos on their phone. Come on. Yeah, we don't know if the phones were wiped or not. Liz thinks it was a 2. Dab said they got rid of all the pictures in the house. Right. So when this is what we're hearing. They not only got rid of all of the photos of this child that supposedly was kidnapped, which no parent of a kidnapped child would ever get rid of photos of their child. They also got rid of the baby clothes. The baby clothes were also reportedly found in the trash. So they got rid of his clothes. They got rid of his pictures. Holly said, I still hope they could find him. Jit says, how does law enforcement know that the injuries occurred at different times unless they have medical reports showing different injuries at different times with different stages of healing? Yeah, great question. I don't know. Serene thinks, Soul Serene thinks it's a 2. So she thinks it's Jake. Holly says, I'm guessing maybe because of the cross-eyed pictures. Bean Baby said they got rid of them, but lots on their phones were taken. So why not those photos and videos? This is a mess. If the baby is alive, I want everyone to stop believing. But they hear and say, the DA is telling us they don't think that he is. Now, I don't know why they think this, but that is what they believe. I think this is why. I'll just give you my theory. Thank you for that, baby. I think they believe that he's no longer with us because all of the photos, they found a lot of blood on the carpet. We still don't know who that blood belongs to inside the home that Rebecca shared with Jake and the 2-year-old and baby Emmanuel. So we don't know who this blood belonged to. They also got rid of all his baby clothes and all of the photos of him inside the house. So that to me tells me that they were done with him, but probably they had to perpetrate this hoax. In my opinion, let me know if you have a different one. Probably they had to perpetrate this hoax because people were probably asking them where Emmanuel was, right? Where's the baby? So she was probably able to give a lot of different answers to that. I'm not done. I just wanted to thank our producers. She was probably able to give a lot of different answers to this. He wasn't vaccinated. We've heard people saying that she gave that excuse before. So she was probably making excuses for a few weeks of why baby Emmanuel wasn't with her. But probably the questions got to the point where she felt like she had to produce baby Emmanuel or come up with some reason that she could not produce baby Emmanuel. So this is what I believe happened. Let me know if you have a different take. But I think that she went with Jake. And according to Eli's mom, who is Jake's son with another wife, I don't know if this is wife 1 or wife 2. But according to her, the former wife of Jake, she says that baby Emmanuel was not even at the game. So he wasn't even at the game when all of this happened. So he wasn't there. So a law enforcement would be able to see from picking up camera footage and let me see if I have that handy because I did. Let me grab that file. I have it handy. I did show you guys where the cameras would have been on this.
I wake up every day angry.
That's the attorney Vincent Hughes. Let me see if I have the cameras. Yeah, there we go. Okay, so they would have been able to grab this camera footage. You can see there are multiple camera footage angles where law enforcement could see if there was an abductor going to or going from the crime scene. They would also be able to see whether or not Rebecca actually had the baby in the car with her. So I believe they were able to determine from one of these cameras, and this is courtesy of Abby Blabby. I think they were able to determine that she probably did not have this child even in the car when she was going to the Big 5 parking lot. They were probably able to determine that she and Jake did not have this child in the car when they were going to the game to watch Eli do not the game, but a practice football. That they would have been able to determine that. Flashbang Barbie says it's been a rough ride. I'm hoping for a trial this November. Texas says so sorry about your nephew. Oh no, did something happen? Oh, my nephew. Oh, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. God bless you. Whew. Bean Baby said they can retrieve deleted stuff. Yeah, so we know from the Stephen Stearns case that he did turn over his phone and gave the passwords, and Vincent made sure to tell us, this is Vincent Hughes, Jake's attorney, made sure to tell us that, oh yes, you know what, they gave over the passwords. That's him right here. So he made sure to say that they had turned over, but we found out that they didn't turn over their electronic devices voluntarily. Law enforcement got a warrant for it. And maybe they did give their passwords. But I guess my question is, did they give their passwords over to law enforcement because they had already deleted stuff off the phone? Holly said, it amazes me with all the cameras everywhere. People think they can still get away with crimes like this. Yeah, I agree. What is wrong with these people? Yeah, that's a great question. Jake is not free. So Jake is in jail where he should be. He and Rebecca right now are not being held with bail. I'm curious to get your input on this as well. We're hearing that the prosecutor is going to be asking for $1 million of bail for both Rebecca and Jake. Not $1 million for both, but $1 million apiece. I think they shouldn't have any bail. Let me know. What do you guys think about that in the chat? Do you think that any amount of bail is appropriate? I mean, in the Delphi case, Richard Allen wasn't given bail. In the Brian Kohlberger case, Brian Kohlberger wasn't given bail. So should Jake and Rebecca Haro be given bail? You know, why should they be given any bail at all? Just okay, so no bail, no bail, nope, no, no. And Claire says no bail for either of them. All right, so you guys, we're all in agreement on that, that they just should not be getting bail. Chrisanne thinks the same thing. Deborah said the baby didn't get a chance. No bail. And Josh says no bail. All right, so we're all in agreement on that. Flashbang says, I think he gave them bail because he knows they won't be able to come up with the funds. I say no bail. Yeah, why give them a chance? We already know that somebody, is setting up a GoFundMe because he talked about that in the interview that Jake gave from jail. So why should he be getting any bail on that at all? Where is he being held? He is in jail. Let me pull that up. Make sure I don't misstate it. Because he gave the interview. They were booked into, both of them are being held at the Riverside County Jail right now without bail. But the prosecution's reportedly asking for $1 million of bail. And I hope that it's up to the judge to decide. I hope the judge decides not to give them any bail at all. So let's go to this. Let me take this down. This is courtesy of the San Bernardino Sheriff's Office.
Of a false police report. And with that, I will take questions. I know you're going to have a lot.
I just want to hear from the DA.
Has recently formed a high-tech crimes unit. They were instrumental in helping us with this investigation. Let me tell you how things are going to go today. There's going to be several individuals that may take questions. I will take all of your questions till there are no more questions. Having said that, there's a lot that we can't say, that I can't say, that nobody up here can say. And the reason is that the defendants in this case have been charged with crimes, serious crimes. And so now they have a presumption of innocence that applies to them. They're innocent until proven guilty in a court of law. I'm not allowed to prove my case in the court of public opinion. And so there's a lot that we can't say in terms of the facts and the evidence. For that, you will have to come to the court and to the various hearings and see how the case plays out. However, having said that, it's appropriate to have a press conference because it was the defendants in this case that had a press conference first. And they did so in order to tell the public, the media, and ultimately law enforcement that their child had been kidnapped, when in fact that's not what occurred. And so we're here to clear up some misconceptions and to explain how this case unfolded in terms of the investigation. It involves two counties working very well together. I know everybody up here on this stage, we work well together normally, but in this case, I'm very proud of the work that was done by Riverside County Sheriff, San Bernardino County Sheriff, my office, and also the District Attorney's Office in San Bernardino County. All right, so we'll go ahead and kick this off. I'm going to bring up first San Bernardino County Sheriff Shannon Dykes.
Okay, so this is the
Thank you,
sheriff.
Mike. To Mike's point, I want to thank all of you in the media for covering this, specifically the parents' initial statements to the public while we were trying to find Emmanuel. They became critical as we continued through this investigation. But I want to talk about a little bit about the process, because we've seen a number of questions related to Amber Alerts and things like that. So I hope when I finish this that everybody understand kind of the course of the investigation. But the investigation started for us on August 14th when Rebecca Haro reported that her son had been kidnapped. Folks, within 24 hours through video surveillance, we found inconsistencies in Rebecca's statement. And as a result of that, there was no other vehicle to put out on an Amber Alert or anything. And I know many of you were wondering why that didn't occur. But really, after finding out those inconsistencies in the statement on the initial report, that's where hundreds of hours of investigations have come in by our specialized investigations division to try to get to the bottom of what's really going on here. And when I say hundreds of hours, I'm talking about forensic data on vehicles, phones, and potential crime scenes.
Okay, so he's talking about forensics, and he's talking about those cell phones, which may, have some information that we don't know about yet. We also know that the carpet in their house had blood on it, so they would have processed that as well, and that may be why they know that baby Emmanuel is no longer with us.
Judicial authorized search warrants that were served. And through that process, that's where we learned that the jurisdiction of where this has occurred was in Riverside County. So hence the Riverside County DA and Riverside County Sheriff's Department, which I can't stress enough. We've had a long-term partnership. We work well together, and we know how to get things done in these environments. But that's why the jurisdiction had changed from the original jurisdiction that was reported in, which is Yucaipa, California.
And I think they went over to Yucaipa, to that big five. This is just my opinion. Let me know if you have a different opinion, because they needed to find a parking lot that didn't have cameras. And they reportedly went into the big five and asked them at the store. They pretended that they had lost something or had something stolen, and wanted to know about their security cameras. And probably law enforcement, just hearing about these hundreds of hours of search, they probably found other businesses that Jake and Rebecca went into and asked similar questions. So they were obviously looking for a store that didn't have cameras.
But as we went through that portion of the investigation and realized that these things had happened in Riverside County, you saw the culmination of all the different entities get involved. And going back to what Mike mentioned about the DA's office in San Bernardino County and high-tech crimes, forensically, there are a number of things that we were able to prove up that we're not going to be able to share today exactly how we did that, but there is a tremendous amount of evidence that suggests that the initial story posed was not the correct story. So in that partnership with our agencies, I'm going to introduce my partner, Chad Bianco, where this crossover occurred at Riverside, and we reached out to Mike, who's obviously filing the case, and of course, Chad, to assist us in the investigation. Chad?
Thank you. Like Sheriff Dykes, I just want to thank all of you for, especially the normal mainstream media, for your attention to this and for your cooperation in this, as we were assisting San Bernardino in this investigation, trying to originally find a missing baby, but then eventually quickly learning that that investigation was not something that it started as. Not so much for social media and keyboard warriors who, quite honestly, sometimes hamper and prevent us from a good investigation. I do want to expand a little bit about our relationship with San Bernardino. A lot from the media, a lot of questions have been raised about jurisdiction. And what Sheriff Dykes and I routinely talk about to our own communities isn't really necessarily displayed in the media or said to the media, but neither one of us care about jurisdiction. Our belief is that the Inland Empire is better served when we are cooperating and working together. And in this investigation from the very beginning, it was obvious that it could involve both counties. When something like that happens, particularly in this case, the original investigation began with Sheriff Dykes, and if he chooses to take it to the end, he will, which obviously he did. And my position is Sheriff Dykes is responsible for this and the assistance of my department. So there is no asking us, there is no anything like that. It is, we have to serve our public best, and he has every single available resource that the Riverside County Sheriff's Office has to offer to make sure that we provide justice in this case.
I do really like the fact that they are focused on getting justice in this case. I really like that. Let me just check in with you guys. I do want to thank, oh, wow. If you guys got a gifted reporter room membership, please make sure you say thank you to Enja. She gifted not one, not two, but 3 reporter room memberships. Thank you so much, Enjaz, for this. That is so kind of you. So that's one of the nice things about coming up and talking to me, is you might find yourself getting a reporter room gifted membership, which is really, really nice. Thank you so much, and Jazz. Yeah, I forgot to say this at the beginning. By giving the channel a thumbs up and subscribing, it lets the YouTube algorithm know that I'm doing a responsible job covering the case. I am working hard to try to bring you responsibly sourced information and credibly sourced information. So Becky said, yeah, the jewelry store turned in their footage from their cameras, according to Ahmed, from on the Tira. Also the liquor store and clothing store. And I would imagine the jewelry store in particular, thank you so much for sharing this, Becky, would have had really good cameras, right? They would have had really good cameras. Catherine said, if I remember correctly, the liquor store across the street also has video. So yeah, they would have video of them not, arriving. And this is what I think. We don't know. This is just my opinion. GF Twin says, I love Tierra. Yeah, I love him too. He's great. He is fighting cancer. If you guys want to add him to your prayer list, he is fighting cancer and is still covering this case, really doing a great job. But we are going to go ahead and continue following this. I do think that, it's, really important. And you guys are the driving force behind getting justice for baby Emmanuel. Law enforcement, does not really, they don't always say it, but they really don't like it when you guys when we all get involved in these cases. Sometimes it's just, yeah, he's fighting cancer. Yes, he is. He's doing chemo and then hopping out and then covering the case. He passed out during the arrest, the morning of the arrest, because he had, he's undergoing chemo, which is really hard on your body. I understand. So, I do think that you guys are the driving force behind this case. If it wasn't for you caring about maybe Emmanuel or Quentin Simon, I know law enforcement, doesn't like it. And Sebastian Rogers, they would just, I do think it does push law enforcement to keep moving forward on stuff. It also pushes the DA and judges to, like this judge that, I shared with you. I told you guys I was like a dog with a bone. I'm still looking for links between Vincent Hughes and the judge. And maybe there aren't any. There may be no links at all. But I'm just wondering if this judge habitually gave out sweetheart deals, or if this, why did Jake get such an easy deal on what happened to baby Carolina, who is now named Promise? So, hey, Pamela. All right, guys. Well, I think I'm going to leave it there. I stayed on a little longer than I was even planning to. Thank you so much for coming by to spend a little bit of time with me. Please let me know that you would like me to continue to stay on this case by subscribing, and drop me a comment below. Let me know if I should continue to cover this case. I will cover it responsibly. This is a missing child, so that's the very least we can do.